Welcome in to Talking Tigers, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this week. It is the district championship game week as the Caruthersville Tigers are heading to St. Genevieve to take on the Valle Catholic Warriors later this week. And of course, last week, getting the win over East Prairie. I'm here with Coach G. As always, Coach, how are you doing on district championship week?
Man, I'm good. I think I gave Jeremy a quote this week that said, "Every time someone says every game's the same, treat every game the same," and it's a big old lie. Um, I think I've been fortunate to be able to coach in a lot of championship environments, and championship week always has a different feel to it. The days feel a little bit longer. You're anxious a couple more days early. You're trying to make sure everything's perfect. You're try not to outcoach yourself, if that makes sense. But so far, I mean, the kids have been pretty locked in, and uh, tomorrow's our big defensive day, so I'm excited to see how that goes and rolling.
Absolutely. Like you said, hey, the days get longer, but these are the days you long for, that you want to build the program for to get to those championship days where, hey, there's a reason why the days are a little bit longer. It's because you're striving towards something, building towards something, and trying to bring a title to Caruthersville. So, listen, the days are long, they're tiring, but you bring a championship home, that means so much more.
And it's you. It's like I said when I took the job, the foundation's already set. I mean, look at our story of winning district championships and conference championships. It's a championship. It's a championship program, and the kids have worked really hard to get back to the standard that has been set by teams and coaches before us. And we get an opportunity to compete for a district title. I mean, there's nothing better.
100%.
There's nothing better I'd rather be doing this week than competing for a district title.
Absolutely. Nothing better than trying to bring a title back here, add another trophy to that trophy room, because I know Tiger Nation, they've been longing for another trophy to go into that trophy case, and they're just looking for an excuse. And this is a really good excuse to go and try to open that thing up and put one in. Let's talk about East Prairie a little bit from last week. Talking about that game last week. Again, you mentioned that you were on different sidelines. So how was it being on that part of the sideline last week? Was it a little bit different for you? Was it just like it feels a little bit weird being on this side?
It was nice to have extra room. There was a little bit more room. We practiced on the game field last week because daylight savings time. So we did a lot of our practice from that side of the field. So we kind of got used to it. It didn't affect our mentality. It was just a little different for us. I mean, I've only coached on that sideline once, and that was last year in the playoffs. I enjoy it over there. It's nice to be able to, when you're up by a lot, look over and talk to maybe give the cheerleaders some props, or like turn back around and really enjoy all the people that were there. So it was cool, but it's nice to win regardless of what side you're on.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it was a little bit weird seeing you guys on that part of the sideline because we're so used to looking across the way and seeing you guys out there. So, and like you said, as long as the results are a win, you don't care which sideline you're on. As long as you get the W that goes in the record book, you're going to take it. So East Prairie, we talked about some of those keys to the game last week. How did you feel about what you guys had to do against East Prairie? Tackling low, making sure that their best players didn't do enough damage that where it affected the defense. How did you feel about those kind of keys to the game from last week?
I thought defensively, we did a great job neutrally. We tackled low. We had some vertical penetration that really disrupted their run game. I think we out physicaled them at the point of attack, which was huge. And I mean, 5 and 6, they're good football players. But I think we brought a really good level of intensity and physicality to that game. Offensively, I mean, we added a couple wrinkles that kind of fit against their defensive scheme perfect. We took advantage of some alleys that were just naturally there by alignment purposes. Naturally, there was a couple of things that they did to Keon, Jermonte, and Sammy, but when it boils down to it, offensive line did a good job. I think Sammy averaged about 10 yards a carry. Monte averaged like 30 yards a carry out of nowhere. So we were able to really be effective on both sides. And then special teams, we were able to put them back, flip the field when we had a punt, and it was just all around a really good football day for us anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned how many yards per carry Sammy and Jermonte are averaging in the season, but also in that game as a whole. When you get that type of production as an offense, I think this might be more of a question, for Joey since he's an OC, but for you as a coach, what does that do for you and the play calling when you got guys averaging that many yards per carry? How much does it help out the offense and help out the play calling, knowing that the playbook is a little bit more open because you got those guys getting that many yards per carry?
I think it really does. It's a nice feeling that you can run the ball on first down and almost guarantee either have another first down or being a really good stop. When Jermonte kind of became that tandem running back about week 5, I think he's at almost 1,400 yards and a ton of touchdowns, and Sammy's got 1,700 yards or something outrageous. I mean, the running attack for us has been great. I think we've shown that we can throw the ball and will throw the ball, but you kind of stick where you're making your money. And right now, it's just been in the run game. I mean, whether you want to key on Sammy or Monte, there's still the other one there. And then Quantaris showed that he can run a jet sweep and that we can pass to Keyston and a couple other guys. So focusing on the run so much, it does open up the pass game a lot for us. But fortunately, we've been able to kind of just stay with our bread and butter, and that's keep it on the ground and put it in an athlete's hands and being really effective that way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes to the credit of the offensive line too, and making sure those holes open up. Make sure, that they know where they're blocking, who they're blocking, and making sure those guys have the ability to get those big chunks of yards, because we know that they can make those plays, just break tackles every which way. But if you don't have an offensive line that is able to help you get and create those holes where they can burst through and get those 8 or 10 yards, it's great to have. It's a great luxury to have an offensive line that's able to do that. I think another question I have is, of course, we had a defensive touchdown last week with Rylan Harris. This guy's a young guy. He's out there making plays on a defense that has a lot of upperclassmen. I know you got to be really thrilled seeing a sophomore being able to come in with all those guys on that side of the ball and just be able to consistently make plays after plays, because we've been calling his name out a lot each and every week. So how is it great for you to see him and his development and his growth from what he was in the summer to see what he is now?
Rylan, I mean, he's a big human being, man. He's huge. We have a really big interior defensive line and pretty and an athletic defensive line from top to bottom too. So when it comes to Ryland, he's able to generate pressure. He's able to hold up double teams. And then what people forget is he had the opportunity to do that against Valle. And he got confused and we're like, go. Just go, damn. So he finally figured out that when the ball's live, take it and go. And I'm happy for him because he does put in a lot of really hard work. He puts in a lot of hard work in the weight room. He's really grown as a player, and he's a great young man, great family. It was awesome to see him score. There's nothing better than seeing a big guy score. He slid back there, and I'm like, please don't get a flag. He sliding in the first base thing, and I'm like, oh. Because he spiked the ball against Valle, and I'm like, oh, my Lord. Everything else going right. So But he had fun with it. I'm happy for him. But he deserves that kind of stuff because he works his tail off. He's a monster in there. A very good football player.
Absolutely. I got to figure he's going to play a key part and maybe try to see if, he has a chance for a fumble against Valley. Maybe doesn't have to have you guys just say, go get it and take it to the house, I think, who knows.
Eventually it'll click for him. Like, dang, like I'm like, come on, we had to yell at you last time. Damn. But I bet, I've never got to score a touchdown or, touch a ball as I'm playing center. So I don't know how it is.
Yeah. But like you said, the big guy touchdowns, they're always something because it's normally like you see like anybody else, a skilled players or like a linebacker or defensive back take it to the house. But you see a big guy score, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. That pumps you up. So it's great to see him get in the stat sheet last week and get the score touchdown. And let's see if there's anything I want to talk about because I noticed, with the run game of East Prairie, of course, Ware is a great running back with the stats he has. And East Prairie, they had a lot of drives where they couldn't finish them. It was kind of a bend but don't break type of style with that type of game. But even though the yardage, you don't want to see them get a lot of yardage, I imagine it's what's on the scoreboard. Is there anything on the scoreboard? Nothing. Good. We're fine with that. How do you deal with that as a coach? Seeing like, okay, you have a team get a lot of yards, but they don't score any points.
I mean, the big thing with that kind of an offense is it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They would get, I think both of them average about 3 yards a carry against us. And they ran and ran and ran and ran. And you just know eventually they're gonna bust. That's just when you play those types of offenses, just what happened. The best part was there was a lot of 3 yards, but wasn't a lot of cloud of dust. And I have a lot of faith in our defense. Especially in our defense coordinator and our upperclassmen type guys there. And we were kind of out of our normal scheme that game, which that's always stresses me out. That's always like the thing I like to try to stay as close to base as we can. We're still in a similar base defense there, but I knew once they started, like you can see, once you see the running back's legs go up, I knew that they were going to end up being successful in the series, and it didn't really stress me out. But it also helps that the offense scored so fast that they didn't even have time to get their bearings.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's one of those situations where Coach Reese didn't have time to really be like, all right, what about this, and this? Because fortunately we scored so quick. When Monte takes one inside zone to the touchdown, you're like, okay, well now they're back on defense. It seems like Coach Reese is constantly coaching on his feet type of a thing. But they do a good job. All through the entire, basically, the growth that we've seen from week 1 to week 11 has been astronomical on both sides of the ball, especially defensive. And I have a lot of faith in those guys when they're out there because you do have some heavy hitters and you do have some things where we can put in place to kind of force offenses to be uncomfortable and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really get stressed out with a bend don't break when it comes to our defense this year anyway.
Yeah. Final thing before we move on to Valley, of course, 4th straight home game, undefeated at home. I know that's really big because you got the home field advantage. You want to protect the home field. So knowing that you guys take care of business at home this year in front of the home crowd, it's got to be a great feeling because the crowd is always pumping and ready to go there and just be able to take care of business. I think I said during the end of the broadcast or close to it, on defense, I think there's around 13 points per game you guys gave up and around 37 you averaged. So that's just going off the top of my head. So being able to take care of business at home, going undefeated, that's got to be big time for you, even though the ultimate goal is, of course, that district title.
Yeah, we haven't lost a home game in 2 years. So we were 5-0 last year, and I think 6 or 7-0 this year, whatever it ends up being. So we're very blessed to have the support we have at home and all of that. And it's playing in front of our crowds, there's something different about it. And we can really attribute that to, of course, just being in Caruthersville. Like, people come to Caruthersville and they know there's going to be a rowdy crowd out there yelling and screaming. The kids play with a different level at home. Wrapping up this season, and you never know, we can end up with another home game, God willing. You got to take it week by week. But when it comes down to it, it's a privilege to be 12-0 or 11-0 at home in the last 2 years, and however many games we won at home this year, because it just kind of shows you that the community is going to back you and be there no matter what, and we're providing the product that they invested in emotionally, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. Because they want this program to be good. They know the expectations. They know what is expected of the football team, and for it to be good because of years past. So yeah, it totally makes sense. You want to be emotionally invested. You want to see these guys do good because you see them throughout the community. You see what they do, and so you want to see them do good. You're emotionally invested in them and what they do on the field, and that you want them to go out there and not only be as good of players as possible, but also be as good people as possible, especially when it comes to sportsmanship on the field and all that stuff. So let's talk about Valley a little bit. This is going to be, I believe, the third matchup within the last calendar year against Valley. Of course, last year in the playoffs, this year earlier on. When you're playing a team for a third time in that amount of time, can you kind of speak about that familiarity that you have about playing that type of opponent?
I mean, well, it's just different when it comes to Valley. I mean, they're perennial just champion, if you will. I mean, this team has won like 20 state titles or whatever, something like that, and they're the force to be reckoned with. It's like the pinnacle of the small school football in this area. Them, Lamar's, all those kind of guys. And the thing about Valley is, you know what you're going to get. You just do. And they've got a swagger to them that they know their Valley, and you've got to overcome a lot of stuff, and you almost have to be physically nasty and technically perfect to be able to beat them. And that's just, if you think about it, that's any team that's really taken down Valley, which the Lamars and Caruthersville a couple times, and you've got to be physical and do a ton of things right, capitalize on mistakes, tackle low, all those things that you preach all year. But everything has to kind of come together. And so our kids know what to expect when they walk into Valle Catholic. They ended our season 2 years ago. They're our sole loss. So there's our sole loss this year. But I think the preparation for the third time around is a little different than the first and the second. First time, they were just, they went to the state finals and ended up losing to Lamar. Second time, pouring down rain. We showed some bright spots. Defense played well. Offense was slipping and sliding and made some fundamental mistakes. I think we're in a way better spot programmatically than we have been the last 2 times we played them. But when you play a game in a championship environment with the history and the caliber of Valle Catholic, you have to almost play and pay attention more of what you're doing to what they're doing, if that makes sense. Like, we have to be sure about this, and this offensively, and the same thing on defense. We know what we're going to see offensively. They're going to throw it vertically. They're going to use the misdirection. They're going to pull. They're going to try to outflank you on the outside. They're going to throw screens. They're going to give us a 4-2-4-3 box mix up. We're going to have to break tackles. We're going to have to make plays. We're going to have to block at the second level. We've evolved a lot since the first time we played Valley. And, this is the third, like you said, this is the third time we played them in the last calendar year. But this time it's a little different. It's a different game. A, it's district finals. And then B, this is a little different program than the last 2 times we played them. So it should be an exciting night.
It should be. And I'm going to harken back to something you said because, you're a different team than you were the first time, and you're also a different team than you were the second time because since then, you guys have gotten an opportunity to play some big games. You got to play at home and get some really key wins. And I imagine that there's a lot of stuff you learned about your team since that loss and just seeing like, okay, we see some growth here. What are something you see here since that Valley game earlier on in the season where you see, okay, we got some improvement here. We see some growth here, whether it's offense or defense.
I think a big thing is our defense has tightened up a lot. Our offensive line's been blocking the second level a lot better. We've kind of fallen into our identity, which let's be honest, if you lose a game like Valle Catholic in the middle of the year, there's two responses that your kids are going to have. They're either going to pack up shop or have a chip on their shoulder. And you don't know how they're going to react until the game after Val. And our kids have kind of put a little bit of chip on their shoulder, like, you know what, we set this goal for our season. And it's a 3-part goal. And naturally, winning the conference one and then winning the district is a big one. And they chose the route of having a chip on their shoulder. And we've had to move some personnel around, as everybody's seen. We've had to change a couple alignments and stuff like that, which everybody's seen. So it was a really good self-scouting, self-reflecting loss. And when I say that we're a different team because of it, it is everything that we've been preaching that we need to do better got exposed that game. You need to be here. You need to be here. You got to do this. You got to do this. We've repped this. We've repped this. Well, guess what? You can get away with it when you're playing someone that's not, that you're just better than.
Right.
Well, guess what? Valle Catholic was like, well, you didn't do this, 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 and this, so we're going to do this, 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 and this, and they got us. It was the ultimate learning experience for everybody, including us, coaches. Well, we knew, I was like, we got to change some stuff with this and change this. We had a list of things that we need to evaluate. And we went to the drawing board. And every week we got closer to the evaluation points, got closer and closer and closer. And our kids decided to put the chip on their shoulder. And then we go from week 5 being 4-1 to the end of the year, we're 10-1. So I'm proud of how the kids respond to that and the programmatic growth. And I think if you're watching our games in our film, you can see that programmatic growth throughout the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
And I think that's huge.
Absolutely. I harken back to when we had our show after the Valley game, and we were kind of talking about that same thing about, hey, sometimes a loss that can help you learn and grow as a program and just be able to see, okay, what are the spots that we need to work on, tighten up on, and get better at? And the good teams, like, with this team, put a chip on their shoulders, like, hey, we want to get better at this because we know who we're going to have to face if we're going to get to our goal of a district title. So I think that's, that a loss, while you don't want to lose a game, I think in that particular instance, like we talked about, it helps move the program forward, helps it grow and mature. And like, okay, we know what we got to get better on. Let's go and get better at it each and every week and practice during the games. And let's grow together to when we do eventually see them, we know that we got a chance to go in there and get the victory.
And I think the hardest part was we don't want our kids to look past anybody. But they were always like, we want to get out. We want to go to Valley. We want to play Valley again. Want to play Valley again. I was like, well, we still got to go through this and this and this and this and this. And that was kind of their focus. And I'm proud of that focus. And I hope that focus translates to Friday night naturally.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Valley's Valley. And it's a phenomenal football program. And you have to bring your A game when you go there. And I'm very confident after today's practice that we're getting closer to that goal. But I think that loss taught us more than anything this year. I think you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. And not saying you don't learn anything from a win, but we've improved greatly as a program since that day because a lot of everything got exposed. And I'm proud of the kids, flat out.
Yeah. Like you said, you know, you gotta, you don't want to lose, and you do learn some things from winning. What's those losses that I think like, okay, we know, let's see where we got beat at, and let's go and try to go to practice. Let's get better at that. So that way it's not a weakness the next time that we play, that it becomes a strength, and turning that into a strength the rest of the season. So it's going to be a fun night, Friday night. I know you and the guys, and I know all of us are happy to not be in, let's just say, a mudslide conditions, you know, on Friday night. I think we're all thankful for that.
Yeah, we're all thankful for that.
I was kind of looking last week, and I know it was a week. I was like, okay, what's the weather going to be like in St. John? And when I saw what the weather was like, I was like, oh, thank goodness, we got the same type of temperature, no rain, and like, yes. So I think, you know, even though we're up in the booth, we're like, man, we don't want to be out here in these, you know, horrible conditions. Nobody wants to be out there in those horrible conditions. So it's good that, you know, there's not going to be any rain to deal with. You won't have to worry about all the slipping and sliding. We've already had too many rainy games like that this year. So it's like, let's get them out the way, you know?
Exactly. Shoot.
All right. Before we get out of here, as always, we do the college picks part of the show. Coach, I believe you called Ole Miss over Georgia last week.
I think so.
And boy, you were bang on. You were bang on that with that one. And speaking of rainy conditions, you know, that game, rainy conditions there with that one. So the Rebs got to win. I had to take a look back at what all else we picked, but shout out to you for getting that one, because Lane Kiffin, that was a much needed win. We talked about him last week. That's a much needed big win over Georgia, a Georgia program that now has 2 losses. So that's a big win for them. Now this week, we're going to be picking them again.
Who? Oh,
yeah. We're gonna, so I'll leave that game for last. There's a couple other games. We got an ACC game in Clemson and Pitt, with the ACC now kind of being in a state of flux with Miami losing to Georgia Tech. Clemson has an outside shot. Pitt has been solid all season long. Who would you say in a game with Clemson and Pittsburgh, who would you have winning that game? That game is at Pitt, by the way.
I'm going to go with Pitt. Those kids from Pittsburgh are tough. Pittsburgh people are tough.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it goes back to the Steelers and them and having that tough of a franchise. And Pitt has been solid this year. And Clemson has let their guard down a couple times. Next up, exactly. It's been up and down. It's been inconsistent. And, you know, they played some bad teams, got up, and then they face a team with a little bit of a pulse. And it's like they kind of run into some trouble there. Mizzou, South Carolina, 6-3, Mizzou 7-2. Drinkowitz still thinks Mizzou has a shot. They still have a shot to get into the college football playoff. And I really kind of doubt that, but Mizzou and South Carolina, who do you like in this one?
Where are they playing?
It's at South Carolina.
Probably South Carolina. I don't know. Mizzou's hot and cold too. They don't have the resume now. And even if they win this week, I don't think they'll have the resume to be in the top 12.
I don't think so either. I just think back to that Alabama game where they just couldn't get anything going. And I
mean, I got blank Alabama, who's really struggling right now. I mean, they beat LSU, but which I enjoyed. I watched that game.
Yeah. I know you enjoyed seeing Milroe just run all over that Tigers defense at Baton Rouge late at night. I know you had to be excited, like, man, thank goodness.
And then that was, I just loved it. I loved every second of it.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think Mizzou, they would need this one, but I don't think they have any type of chance here. But South Carolina, they're kind of a sneaky, they've been sneaky solid this year so far. They snuck up on me.
They'll catch you on the chin.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the final one, this is the big one. Tennessee at Georgia, night game at Athens. Really the first big game Georgia's played at home. All their big games this year so far have been on the road. They have a lot of pressure on them. I think this is going to be a big one with both these teams. It could be a de facto elimination game. I think so for Georgia. For Tennessee, it might be as well. What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going to go with Tennessee, and just because there's too much going on within the locker room at Georgia for me. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
There's always stuff coming out about arguments and dads texting coaches, and that's all a distraction. And then you've got Georgia kids dancing with whoever's fans, and that's getting brought up in coaches' interviews. There just seems to be a little bit too much like immaturity within their program with their kids, and a lot of outside stuff kind of bubbling up. And anytime that stuff comes, when you get a big game and you got a bunch of outside garbage like that, and Tennessee's rolling, I mean, I got to go with Tennessee.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right on this one this week. Listen, you can miss any of these other games. If you get this one right, I'm going to be like, Coach, I'm going to credit this one to you because you picked us. And it feels like nobody's really picking Tennessee. I think I've seen Georgia as a big time favorite heading into this one. And like you said, you got all that stuff added into this. This is a really big pressure game. And I think I look at Georgia's 2 losses. The thing with them is when they scored, they had a short field. Their offense has been able to drive long fields. And so I think if you're a Tennessee defense that's been really great all season long, you want to make sure that your offense doesn't make mistakes. You play clean football, and that also you make them drive down the field, make them beat you. Because so far, Tennessee's defense has been, besides Texas, the defense has probably been the best in the conference. So, man, I hope you're right.
I just see it. There's no drama there right now. There's nothing. Georgia's kind of like in this weird thing. Their quarterback's throwing a bunch of picks. I think he has like 12 picks in the last 6 games. That's a lot of picks. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like their year. They're having some growing pains.
Yeah, I do think it's a product of not having those weapons outside that you lost last year and just really kind of trying to find somebody out there. And I think the quarterback is kind of pressing it a little bit, and they're not getting anything out of the run game. And I think the offensive line is a thing too, because Georgia, they've had good offensive lines here this year. Not so much, and they're not getting any traction in that run game that has made them really good.
Yeah, and it's the age old. If you can't run the ball,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Coach, that'll do it for this edition of the show. Thanks so much for joining us, as always, once again, and good luck this week at Valley.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, guys, with the Valley game this week, be sure to check in 6:45. Paul Glass and myself will have the pregame show before the kickoff at 7 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. Audio, video version, go to Misha and pay-per-view, all that good stuff. We'll have an audio version as well. So don't want to miss the action, as this is district championship week. Title is on the line this week. So check in at 7 o'clock, 6:45 again for the pregame. So everybody, that'll do it for this edition of Talking Tigers. Thanks so much for joining us once again. I will talk to you